everyone, welcome back to my channel. As you can tell by the title, in today's video I'm going to be talking to you guys about 24 books that I would like to read before the end of 2024. So this is kind of like my end of year TBR, like second half of the year TBR. I don't even know what to call it, but I did see Alexa Ray do this, and full credit to her for the idea. I just really liked the idea and thought that I would do it, and so I could pick like a specific number. I was like, it's 2024, so I'm gonna do 24 books that I want to read. I honestly don't care how many books that I read in the second half of the year because I've already passed my reading goal for the year. My reading goal was 75 books and I've somehow managed to finish reading 75 books already. So I'm not going to push myself to read like a bunch of books in the second half of the year because I'm already in a massive reading slump, and I feel like pushing myself to read is not going to help that. So I'm just going to sort of like see how I go and read what I want, like very much mood read the rest of the year. But these are the books that are on my like priority TBR and the books that I kind of want to get to sooner rather than later. Anyway, with all of that being said, I'm just going to go through the books in absolutely no particular order and talk about each of them a little bit. I'm not going to ramble too much because I don't want this video to be like 40 minutes long. The first book I'd like to read before the end of 2024 is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. This is like a 5-star prediction for me. I've been seeing a lot of people reading this book recently and absolutely raving about it. And personally, I haven't read a Kristen Hanna book yet. This was the first book that I picked up and bought from her, but I've been putting this off for a little bit because I know that it's going to be an emotional read. And honestly, with like my mental health at the moment and where I'm at in life, I just don't know if an emotional read is the best thing for me. I feel like it's also going to start off my journey into reading Kristen Hanna, and I'm probably going to want to pick up everything that she's ever written. So I'm very much excited for this book. Next one is The Book of Azrael by Amber V. Nicole. I'm actually planning on buddy reading this with someone in September, so I do think that I'm going to get to this one very soon. I believe this one's a romantasy, and honestly the front cover I feel like doesn't look like my vibe and it doesn't look like my sort of book, but I've heard nothing but incredible things about this and I honestly have very high expectations for it. But again, I'm either going to love it or hate it. It really depends on how complicated the fantasy is in this, because sometimes when I read I just want to use no brain power and so I don't really remember things that are happening, but hopefully this one is easy to understand. I'll read a bit of the back. It says, many centuries ago, desperate to save her dying sister, Diana made a deal with Caden, a monster far worse than any nightmare. Locked in servitude to him, she is forced to hunt down an ancient relic held by her most dangerous enemies, an army led by Samkiel, the world ender. That honestly sounds so interesting. I hadn't even read the back of the book until now, so I'm very excited for this. It's also quite a long one and the writing is really tiny. It's like 550 pages. Like, if you can see how small the writing is, makes me a little scared. Next book I have is All In by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which is the third book in the Natural series. I actually just finished reading Killer Instinct, which is the second book this week, and I was a little bit nervous to go into that one because I didn't really remember much about the first book. So I was like, I don't know if I'm going to remember this, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy this book, but I ended up really loving Killer Instinct as well, and it made me more excited to continue and finish this series. I'm not going to include both books in this video, but I do want to finish both books before the end of the year, and I'm actually going to film like a finishing book series video part 2 very soon, and I think this book will definitely be included in that. The next one is The Right Move by Liz Tomford. This is the second book in the Windy City series, aka the book that comes after Mile High. Now I read Mile High either last month or this month, I honestly can't really remember, but it was a really long book and it sort of put me in a slump, but I also really liked it at the same time, so it's really hard to explain. But I think I listened to most of it as an audiobook just so I could get through it, because as I just said, it was very long. But everyone says that about Mile High, and everyone also says that The Right Move is their favorite out of this series. So honestly, I'm very excited for this. I believe we're following Ryan Shea in this book, and I absolutely loved him in the first book. Like, I know I'm going to be obsessed with him. And it's also a basketball romance, which I've never read anything like before, and this could also be included in the finishing book series video. We'll see. Next one is This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. Honestly, I don't know why exactly I want to finish this before the end of the year, but I can just really imagine myself sitting on the beach reading this book, and I'm gonna make this summer like my ultimate hot girl summer, because honestly the last couple of summers in Australia just haven't really hit. Last year the weather was absolutely atrocious and it was like raining every single day, so I'm really hoping that this summer is a lot better weather wise, and that would mean that I can sit on the beach reading books for hours, and that's why I just thought I'd add this. The next one is Culty by Mariana Zapata. This is a book that I definitely want to get to, but it's not like necessarily a priority for me. Like, if I don't get to it this year, I'm not going to be mad about it. This is just a book that I picked up recently secondhand from someone because I heard that this book book is really, really good from Mariana Zapata, and I believe I've read 2 other books from her so far that I really liked. And honestly, I just have a feeling that I'm really gonna like this one as well, because I just love her writing. She's literally the queen of writing slow burns, and that's why I know I'm gonna love this. And this is actually a soccer romance, and my boyfriend used to play soccer, so I feel like I could relate to this one a little bit. Okay, the next book that I really want to read before the end of 2024 is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This was actually on my August TBR, but I've been in a massive slump this month, so I highly doubt I'm going to get to it this month. But it was a book that you guys actually chose for me, so I'm going to film like a little mini TikTok reading vlog of this when I get to it. So I'll definitely get to it this year, but honestly, I'm so nervous for this book because I know that it's not a romantasy, and I know it's got like no romance at all, even though some people say that for some reason. So I am going into it with the correct expectations, I guess you could say. But I just feel like this book either people love or hate, and I really want to love this. I have this feeling that I will, but I'll just have to see when I go into it what I actually think. The next book is Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. I saw this girl on TikTok recently who was like doing the ultimate guide to Jennifer Hartman books, and honestly it just made me want to pick up one of her books and try them out. I believe this is like a dark romance, but I also don't think it's like a crazy dark romance. Like, I don't think it's like Haunting Adeline sort of level, but honestly I just feel like I've heard great things about this book in particular. I just feel like this is like one of the most well-known books from her. Like, I've definitely seen this talked about before I saw that Jennifer Hartman video, so I actually only picked this up like a couple of days ago, and I definitely want to read it very soon. The next one is Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. This is a book that I've genuinely been putting off for probably the longest amount of time. Like, this book has been sitting on my shelf for so long, and I actually recently bought the Fairy Loot editions of this series because they were just too beautiful, and honestly I just have a really good feeling that I'm gonna love this series. I didn't want to get FOMO. I was scared that I was gonna miss out, so I just bought them anyway, and I bought them like a few months ago, and I was like, yeah, like I'll read Dance of Thieves before they actually arrive. I didn't end up reading this book before they actually arrived, but I do definitely want to read this before the end of the year. I feel like because we're going into the warmer weather in Australia, it's really not the sort of vibe to read this book, but I'm definitely gonna try to push myself to read it because I just know I'm gonna absolutely eat this up. The next one is One for My Enemy by Olivia Blake. I've only read one other Olivia Blake book before, which was the Atlas 6, and I did read that like quite a few months ago now, but I did honestly really like it. I love her writing style, and it's very like quotacious, if that's a word, very like lyrical writing, and a lot of stuff that I really wanted to annotate. So I feel like I'm gonna love this, like based on the cover. The cover of this book is really beautiful, and I feel like that just makes me think I'm gonna love it even more. Honestly, I don't have any idea what this is about, and I'm not even going to read the back of the book because I feel like it's better to go into her books blind. Next one is Light Lark by Alex Astor. I remember before I was even on Book Talk, this was like one of those books that I would see pop up all the time, and I feel like a lot of people have seen Alex Astor's like promotions of this book, and I know that this book's very hit or miss. Like, people either love it or hate it, but one of my friends recently read this and she said that she doesn't understand why it gets hate, and she actually really enjoyed it. So I feel like I might end up liking this because we have quite similar tastes. I'm very excited to read this. I don't know if I'll 100% get to it, but it's definitely a book I've been putting off for a long time, so I feel like I need to push myself and finally pick this up. Next book is Hot House Flower by Krista and Becca Ritchie. I don't really have anything to say about this, but this is the 5th book in the Addicted / Calloway Sisters series, and I read this series like over a year ago now, and I recently read Kiss the Sky, which was the 4th book, and so I just want to continue my journey into this series. Maybe I'll read this book and a few more in that series, but it's a series that I definitely want to finish because I honestly love it, and every time I go into it I'm like, I missed these characters so much, but for some reason I never have motivation to pick them up. Next one is Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. This is the 2nd book in the Six of Crows duology, so I read Six of Crows a couple of months ago now as well. I feel like I started a lot of series at the start of this year and then never continued them, but I actually had a really good friend annotate this for me, and she also annotated Six of Crows, and honestly it made my experience so much more fun reading, and I feel like that's what made me love Six of Crows so much. I think I gave Six of Crows like 4 or 4.5 stars, but the way it ended, it honestly set up for a really good 2nd book, so I feel like this one's definitely going to be a 5-star read, maybe even a 6-star read, so we'll have to see when I go into it. But again, it's just really long, and it's one of those books that like when the weather gets warmer you don't really feel like reading it, but also we're not even out of winter yet, so I'm being a little bit dramatic when I say that. The next book I'm very nervous about, and that is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. I actually read like a chapter of this at the start of this year or late last year, and I honestly really really enjoyed it, but I just wasn't really in the mood for a fantasy, so I did put it down. But I've never read a Cassandra Clare book before, and this is a book that I'm gonna start with. I believe there's like a whole like reading order in the Shadowhunters universe, and there's a few different options that you can start with, but I believe the most like recommended way to start is with City of Bones, so that's what I'm gonna do. The next one is Out on a Limb by Hannah Burnham Young. This is a book that has been on my like priority to buy list for such a long time, and for some reason I could never get my hands on it in Australia. Every time I would check Amazon, it would be out of stock and I could just never get it until recently, and then I was finally able to pick it up in the newer cover. I do definitely prefer the older cover, but I was like, I don't even care at this point. I just want to pick this book up and I just want to read this book, and honestly I'm so excited for this. I don't know what to expect, but honestly I just feel like it's going to be a really sweet book. The next one is Leather and Lark by Bryn Weaver. This is another book that could be included in that finishing book series video, because this is actually a book that comes after Butcher and Blackbird. Almost forgot the name for a second. This is following a completely different couple, but pretty much the premise of Butcher and Blackbird was two serial killers that kill other serial killers, and then they had a romance together. So it was very interesting. Didn't really know how to feel, because like you sort of like the characters, but they're also doing these really horrible things. And there was a massive trigger warning page at the start of Butcher and Blackbird, and let me tell you, that one scared me. But this one, 100 times scarier. Like some of the points that they've put on here: eyeballs but not eye sockets, teeth and tooth byproducts, and my favorite one that I'm a little scared about is I might have ruined pizza and beer, also smoothies, still not sorry. I don't know what to expect going into this, because there was a specific thing that got ruined for me in the first book. I think it was like cookies and cream ice cream or something, and you wouldn't understand until you go into it. So I can't even tell you guys. I am so excited for this. I feel like the banter in the first book was just perfection, and I know this one's going to be even better. The next one is Wild Love by Elsie Silver. This is like quite a new release, but I also know the next book is coming out in the next few months, I believe. So I do definitely want to get to this book before that next book comes out. This is the start of a new series, and I believe this whole series is going to be the single dad trope. And honestly, after reading Heartless by Elsie Silver, I can definitely get behind that. That book was my favorite in the series by far, and it made me love the single dad trope so much, so I'm very excited to go into this one. Okay, these next two go hand in hand because they are from the same series and they are the same author, but they're also like an interconnected standalone sort of series, so they're not actually a series, if that makes any sense. So we have Yours Truly and Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I'm actually currently reading Yours Truly. I'm like probably 20% through the book, so this is cheating a little bit, but honestly I am loving this so much. And I also recently read Part of Your World, obviously, which is the first book in this little interconnected trilogy. So of course when I finish this, I'm definitely going to go into this book, because I've been seeing everyone rave about this book since it came out. I don't think I've seen one negative review about this. I've seen people getting emotional over this book. I've seen all the quotes in this book, and honestly I just know it's going to be perfection, and I know I'm going to love it so much. So I thought that I would add both of these books to this TBR. The next one is Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. This is another one that's like sort of a series, but it's more like interconnected standalone. So the book that come before this one was When in Rome, and When in Rome I loved, and it's a very popular book, but I also believe that everyone says that this book is even better. I'm honestly very excited about this, because I believe this one's following the best friend of the main female character in When in Rome, and I really liked her character in the first book. I feel like she's going to be very relatable to me. Okay, we've got 4 books to go. The next one is 1,000 Broken Pieces by Tilly Cole. This is obviously the book that comes after 1,000 Boy Kisses, and that was one of the first books that got me back into reading. And when I tell you, that book made me absolutely sob to the point where I couldn't breathe. Like I never thought that I would feel that way over a book, but that book made me feel so many emotions, and honestly I'm terrified to go into this one. But I also don't really remember that much about the first book, so I kind of want to do a reread, even though that would definitely traumatize me. The next one is Quicksilver by Kelly Hart. This is a book that's been going absolutely viral on TikTok recently, and I actually started this one as well. I did get 20% through, but honestly I was really enjoying it, but I wasn't really in the mood for a fantasy, so I have soft DNF this for now, and I'm going to restart it from the beginning because I don't really remember what was happening. But all I know is that it was giving me very much Akatar vibes. Like it literally felt like exactly what was happening to Feyre in that first book, so I feel like it could be a carbon copy of that, but I also didn't really get far enough in to make that comparison, because it could have definitely changed throughout the book. We have The Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood. Sometimes I say Christy by accident, but it is Kirsty. This book looks absolutely amazing. It looks like it's going to be such a beautiful story. This is actually actually another book that was on my August TBR, but I don't think I'm going to get to it this month. So you guys again did choose this one for me to read, so I am going to include this in a little mini TikTok reading vlog. But honestly, I want to like kind of savor this, and I want to save it for a time when I'm not in a reading slump, because I feel like if I am, that'll definitely ruin the experience for me, and I do have really high hopes for this book. And the very last book that I want to get to in 2024 is Where the Dark Stands Still by A.B. Poranek. This is one that I also bought very recently, and I bought it because of one review that influenced me to buy this book. All I heard was that it's a romantasy, and it's a really good romantasy, and I was like, yep, that's getting added to my cart straight away. Again, I honestly don't really have any idea what this is about, and the back of the book is one of those like blurbs that don't really make much sense and don't really provide much information, but I feel like they also end up being the best type of books. Like Magnolia Parks was like that, and now that's one of my favorite series ever. That was the last book, so they were the 24 books that I want to read before the end of the year. I will definitely do some sort of check-in, whether that's on here or on my TikTok, and see how many of these books that I actually end up reading, because if you guys know me, you know that when I set TBRs, I never stick to them. I don't think I've ever finished a monthly TBR, let alone 24 books that I'm saying that I'm going to read before the end of the year. Like, I just don't think that's going to happen, but it will be very interesting to see how many I actually end up getting to, because I am like calling this my priority TBR. But yeah, with all of that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. If you're new here, I really hope you stay and subscribe, because I would love to have you here. But I will see you all in my next video.